My name is Justin Trible. We're going to talk a little bit about reading and writing today. So, a little bit about myself. Got into reading way back in the day under a program called RIF, which is called Reading is Fundamental. Basically, you read a couple of books, you get them to sign off on your teacher, and you'd get a free personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut. So, big time motivator there, very early sponsor for my reading and overall literacy. I would go to the library and read books about states and things like that, and really just lose myself in those books. So it was a big time escape for me. A lot like Pasquale that we covered in the class with reading J.K. Rowling and things like that as a way to kind of get away from the real world. And it was a big move for me in my teenage years. Along with music, specifically hip hop. Um, Getting into reading classics like The Count of Monte Cristo, which is my favorite book still to this day, along with The Man in the Iron Mask, The Three Musketeers, and all of those types of books. But I also did read like a lot of science fiction. I always kept up with the Star Wars trilogies and things like that. So it was a very nice balance of what I would write. So it really gave me a nice balance of different things that I read, and it actually ultimately would help me in the future. Um, Once I started to write, because early in the days I never was much of a writer. I always liked to read aloud in class and really just volunteer to do the reading. Um, Once I started to get more into sports, I never really liked the way that things were portrayed. It was always much like a know-it-all type of culture, or sometimes even condescending. But then I started reading more articles from like Slam magazine, ESPN. The magazine was very cutting edge at the time. It was very, new age, so to speak. So that really spoke to me because I always thought that there was a way that you could get your point across in sports while having fun. So I would read articles from like Bill Simmons and T.D. Williams, Bomani Jones, and it's the wheel started turning for me. Um, like how can we make this fun? How can we incorporate more culture other than just sports culture into our writings? So that's when I started writing for FSBS, which was a small blog site. Um, Geared for people who were into hip hop culture, who also liked technology, who also liked video games, who also liked sports. So it was like a melting pot of cultures all into one. And, started to just take stories from the tech world and make them my own. I would put GIFs and memes and things like that I just learned from years on message boards, putting them into editorial form basically, just to really spice it up. Um, and then started writing for thekali.com, which is one of the largest hip-hop message board sites on the internet, and they have a front page with content and things like that. So I really just picked up where I left off there. And then the people that I spoke to before about firestarter.com and Bomani Jones, and they were a real sponsor for me because it was showing that you can write with pop culture in mind to sports, how these things draw parallels. You can make it fun. You can take lines from hip hop and apply them to sports. You can take this culture, because sports culture is hip hop culture. It's people my age, it's people younger than me. We didn't agree with, a 70-year-old man writing about sports. Like, who's he to tell us what's cool and what's not cool? So that's what everything started with me. I went come full circle from being strictly a reader to being a full-fledged writer. Um, and so that's my literary crossfade.